Hi, and welcome to Michigan Matters. We're in the final hours of this historic primary season as voters go to the polls on Tuesday. So, what's at stake? We'll talk to political journalists Keith Owens and Lauren Gibbons. Plus, Democratic gubernatorial candidate Chris Swanson is here to discuss issues and ideas. And it's a look at what's at stake in the growing defense industry. How is our region positioned to cash in? Well, pull up a chair and join us as we dive in on those questions and more. Let's get started.
From CBS Detroit, this is Michigan Matters with Carol Kane. Michigan Matters is brought to you in part by Cure Auto Insurance.
And we're pleased to welcome Mark Igdash, who's Director of Strategic Initiatives and Ecosystem Development for Aerospace and Defense. Chris Houghton, who's a Chief Operating Officer at Pratt Miller, which is in New Hudson, and retired Colonel Valde Garcia, who was with the U.S. Army Reserves, and past president of NDIA Michigan's chapter. Good morning. Great to see you guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, we're here to talk about something that's really important, and that is the growing defense industry. Each of you plays an important role in this. And if you can just give me a quick thumbnail on what you do, Mark, from your standpoint with your organization, what you do.
Yep, so on behalf of the state's defense aerospace economy, which is $30 billion in impact, 5,000 plus suppliers, we work to coordinate and convene partners, industry, academia, government, all around this topic of how we enhance and grow this defense and aerospace economy.
And Chris, welcome to you. This is the first time for you on the show. Great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So give us a quick thumbnail on Pratt Miller, which is a long time. I don't know how old it is, but very old.
Yeah, so Pratt Miller was founded in 1989. We started 100% in motorsports, but in the last 15 to 20 years, we've diversified into automotive, defense, and advanced mobility projects now.
And Valde, you have been involved with promoting the defense industry here, even back when you were state legislator. And with your role now with NDIA, and I know you're the past president, but you're still involved. What's your role in this?
So my role as past president is to help NDIA Michigan connect Michigan companies with the Detroit Arsenal and Selfridge Air National Guard base, the military, so we can help the warfighter provide them the systems and weapons and tools they need to do their jobs.
Well, we know that there's more money being spent than ever on defense industry right now. Mark, from the region's standpoint, how do you think we're doing at cashing in, capitalizing, helping companies here get opportunities?
I think we've been, now more than ever, in unity of effort and partnership, finding more opportunity and bringing opportunity to industry in a way that we've not seen in several years. And I think there's a lot of strength in the partnerships we've been developing and cultivating to achieve that outcome.
Yeah. Chris, Pratt Miller, which again started autos, racing, in defense. How big a leap was that? And what are you doing within the defense sector?
Yeah, so we found that our motorsports-derived product development process transferred very well to the defense industry, that all the engineering tools that we're using and the skills that we had in manufacturing to build, test, and eventually go into production, that all of those applied very well to the defense industry. And now we're working on survivability, lethality solutions, as well as robotics products now.
How long have you been with the company?
17 years.
Oh, okay, so you're a newcomer. How big a leap, how tough was it to make the transition and get contracts?
I think we had a great entry point with motorsports,
Yeah.
in that whole transition of motorsports safety and design approach and speed and precision
Yeah.
into defense, and it was something that the defense industry was looking for, so it really worked well for us. Contracting was definitely one of the areas that we had to learn, but there's a great support network locally and in Michigan to help new companies learn the contracting process and how to enter defense.
And Valde, the GV Sets, which is a event coming here to Novi, August 11th to 13th.
Correct.
What's the goal of that event?
The goal is to connect Michigan companies, and actually all defense companies that happen to come here, with the local the military, primarily the Army, the Marine Corps as well, but we're reaching out to the Navy and the Air Force to try and connect them with the military, the warfighters, so that they can share with the Department of War now the technology they have, the systems that they have, Chris mentioned autonomy. The Army's looking for autonomy.
Yep.
We're looking for commercial solutions. So it's a great opportunity for networking and to share ideas.
How many people are you expecting to come in? It's a national event. So are we talking hundreds, thousands? How many people?
So last year we had over 2,700, and it's been growing every year by at least 100 to 200 people. So we expect close to 3,000 this year.
Because of the fact that President Trump announced he's proposed boosts in spending for defense spending for the country, I think it's $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion. Is that a bigger opportunity here in Michigan for what they want to put the money towards?
Absolutely. There is a big opportunity there. Whether or not we'll see that or whether or not a lot of that will come to Michigan, we don't know for sure. I mean, the time will tell, but we're certainly going to be able to advocate for the companies that are.
Well, I know we're going to talk more about that and some other things. I want to also talk about a big issue, which has been an issue here in Michigan. That's the talent needs for this industry. So keep it right here. We're back with more Michigan Matters right after this. Welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're talking with Mark Ignash, Chris Houghton, and retired Colonel Valde Garcia. Again, thank you again for your service to our country here. About companies doing more in this defense space here in Michigan. Mark, the President, the Pentagon have been talking with leaders from Ford, GM, others here to try to do more with things like weapons stockpile, other needs in this growing area of a sector here. How important is that, and how do you see that playing out here in Michigan?
I think that the signal that we're seeing sent, and we saw this as recently as Reindustrialize when GM made their announcement, Ford just made theirs this past week, that sends a significant signal, not just that our large automotives are saying, yes, we are a part of this, but it sends a signal to our supply chain, the backbone of what our defense economy needs.
Yeah, and Valde, this is where you get involved here with NDIA, and you have done this as a state legislator. That was your focus and what you're doing here. How easy or complicated is it for a manufacturer who's interested in making the leap, the transition to this? Maybe they've been an auto manufacturer doing something else to make the leap to going after Army contracts or something.
Well, I think as Chris said, there's a learning curve there with contracting and all the issues that involves in the bureaucracy, the CMMC, making sure we protect the intellectual property. But it is, once you get that, it's a good way to produce jobs and make systems and tools for our warfighter. It's like Mark said, the supply chain is absolutely essential to the big companies and to our economy.
Yeah, and Chris, in your company, I don't know if you have job openings. I hear from so many CEOs and the top leaders of companies about the dismay they have. They can't fill jobs. They've got jobs open. What's the situation at Pratt Miller?
Yeah, we absolutely rely on top talent, both in engineering and in skilled trades. We do have openings. We feel very fortunate to be in this area where there is so much manufacturing and engineering work that comes from both the defense, automotive, and other industries that are here in Michigan, and the great local schools that we have that are producing talent for us to take advantage of. But it is a challenge.
Are you doing any particular tie-in programs with any of the community colleges or universities in all of this?
Yeah, we have quite a bit going on with, we run an internship program. We're working with some of the skilled trades, community colleges on development programs, and we rely on some of the engineering competition programs like Formula SAE and other things that are really helping develop very capable engineers.
Because you've gone down this path, you've lived this, you've gone through this whole event, you have gone as a company, and you being CEO, you have lived this. What piece of advice would you give a company that's watching this and saying, should I consider doing this? What was the toughest challenge of making that leap into it?
I think the toughest thing for us was the contracting and the difference in the language, but the key deliverable, the key skill that all of the companies around here have is delivering a quality part on time. Yeah. And that's really what the defense industry needs, just like the automotive industry. So there's really quite a few opportunities to do that.
And Mark, we often heard about women, getting women certified or minority certified. Does that help a company in gaining contracts anymore?
It does. It does. There are programs that set aside specifically for small businesses that are diversified in such ways. And that's where, to Chris's point, we and our partners in the state have programs to help companies leverage those advantages and enter the defense marketplace.
And you get the final word here as we're wrapping things up here. This conference that's coming up here, is that Suburban or?
Well, it used to be Suburban.
Yeah,
it's now called a Vibe Credit Union.
Okay, got it. I'm going to get that right. The sponsor, Vibe Credit Union. They're spending big bucks to put their name on the building here, I'm sure. So who should attend this? If you were to say someone watching this, who should attend it?
Small businesses, manufacturers, engineering companies, anybody that has an automotive interest, because there's lots of opportunities. Come and learn, see what's available, look at the process, talk to people, and you're going to find opportunities to diversify your business and help your country and this state.
And gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being here. This is an important conversation and topic. There's much more to say. We'll be talking as the year and years ahead go, because it is a growing part of our economy. Thank you so much for being here. And keep it right here. We're back with more Michigan Matters as we switch gears and we talk politics. Don't go away. Welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're now joined by Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson, who's running for governor in the Democratic primary, who's hoping to get your vote this coming Tuesday. Great to have you in here.
Glad to be back.
So I know you announced, God, had to be 18 months or so ago?
Yeah, the 6th of February, 2025.
There we go. How many miles do you put on your car?
98,000 on the way down here today.
Oh my goodness. Well,
in just 18 months.
And it is. Running for statewide office, it takes a lot. So let's just dive right in here. Obviously, Gretchen Whitmer is term limited. That race is wide open. You're running a Democratic primary against Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. What one or two issues separates you from Jocelyn Benson?
Number one, I come from a different path. Obviously, she's been the Secretary of State, part of the system. Me coming as a sheriff from a big county that's been battle tested, from water crisis to, civil unrest, but also my education. I've been a professor at the University of Michigan Flint for 28 and a half years in public health. I have a different energy, different vibe, so there's a big difference, although we're still friends.
Okay. Many polls suggest, in fact, I think just about every poll I've seen, that she has a substantial lead over you in this contest. How do you see it, and what are you going to be doing these last hours of this primary?
I got to believe that those polls mean nothing. If you believe in polls, then Hillary should be the president, Donald Trump should not be, and Mike Duggan should still be in the race. If you look at the polls that are taken, 500 people, those aren't the 500 people that I talk to every day. We do our own internal polls, and they are completely different. So I think what you're going to see, and if you look across the country, that polls and money are not winning races. So I pay no attention to them. I know where the people are, and that's the message we push. We have done those building blocks in those communities, and when they show up, we're going to win.
Let's talk a few issues here. Affordability is a massive concern of consumers and voters right now. As governor, what one thing would you do to help ease the situation that would help the financial bottom line of Michiganders?
The one thing is, right out of the gate, is freeze DT and consumers rate hikes right out of day one. I know that we've been sparring with the CEOs saying that the governor can't do that. We can under executive order for affordability. 23% of Michigan cannot pay their gas and electric bills. That's the first thing out of the gate. We're going to do that 6-month moratorium to figure out what are we paying for, what are we getting, no more rate hikes. The other thing is pour back into small businesses, repeal that 24% cannabis tax, which is just one industry. If it's that industry today, what is it tomorrow? We're getting back to building up small businesses and getting people the ability to make money again, but not taxing them.
Speaking of the utility companies, data centers is a huge issue and something that's on the radar suddenly around the country, though they've been around for years. Communities are grappling with this, what to do, and some are fighting trying to have them. If elected governor, how would you approach data centers, projects, and regulating them?
Well, I think it's important to note that I'm not taking any DT or consumers' money. My family's not making any money off data centers. I have no interest in shoving things down local communities' throats. That's the problem, is they're taking away public comment. You have NDAs with people that are making decisions in the government. You've got the elimination of public comment. And when the state comes in and does that, then you have destroyed all opportunities for unity. So as governor, we're going to break the state into 3 colors, yellow, red, and green. Yellow meaning basic infrastructure and a basic desire for new industrial and whatever that manufacturing is. Red means no infrastructure, no desire. We want to keep it the way it is. And green means infrastructure, and we're open for business. Once you identify that in the beginning, you're competing with 49 states, a global market. It's just the messaging has been terrible on these products. And I'm a union candidate. I got 34 labor endorsements. Labor doesn't want to build anything when the locals are protesting. When you take away local voices, you have what you have in Saline.
Another huge issue is the state of education in the state. Our state has dropped to 44th, last thing I saw, in terms of how effective in young people being prepared for the future. As governor, what one thing would you do to improve Michigan's educational prospects of young people?
Yeah, and I think it's important to know, coming from somebody who's been in education for 20 and a half years, a member of American Federation of Teachers, that teacher-student relationship is critical. I don't believe that we're nearly as bad as what those, again, polls say. We have gaps, but we're not a broken system. We've got amazing educators and support staff. I work with the MEA. I work with those individuals. That 7-point plan of education, number one, protect that school aid fund, K through 12. Inmate education is critical to get people out of jails and back into the streets. Also making sure you protect the community college and the upper education. Boost that teacher rate to 60,000 baseline, creating that gap that may not be met by some local school districts. Making sure that kids have free breakfast and lunch, not based on how much mom and dad makes to see if they can qualify to eat Cheerios. These are basic things that can happen right out of the gate. But ultimately, literacy. That the science of reading curriculum, it makes sense, but it takes sometimes 2 years for these teachers to get up and running. We're going to open that training up so it's 24/7. They can get that.
Where do you get the
training.
money for all this? Well, that's
No, that's the whole thing. That's where that GDP increase comes, not by taxing people. If we are going to be serious about preparing ourselves, it's got to be education.
That will have to be the last word here, as I've had candidates on. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to look in the camera, make your stump speech about why they should vote for you Tuesday.
People are looking for hope. They're looking for unity. They're looking for new leadership. I see it all the time. When you look at all the, what I call main points, public safety, education, environment, and economy, they're tired of the establishment, and I'm sure you're feeling the same way. So I've worked hard 18 months straight to go to almost 1,700 events, to show up, to be intentional, to be authentic, to be real, to go into communities that I don't normally go into as a candidate for governor, but I have done that across the state. So if that's what you're looking for, I can promise you Genesee County has prepared me greatly for this next step, and we're going to bring this home, and we're going to bring the state together and watch what happens. Michigan is poised to do something different, and I can bring it.
Sheriff, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it. We're certainly going to be watching Tuesday and going forward on this again. Thank you so much. Appreciate it here. And keep it right here. We're back with more Michigan Matters and the Roundtable after this. Welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're now joined by Lauren Gibbons, who's a senior political writer for Bridge, Michigan, and Keith Owens, award-winning journalist, commentator, and inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. Congratulations to you on that. Quite an honor.
It was good. It was nice to see.
Yeah, nice to be honored while you're there to enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, speaking of honors and things going on, we know Tuesday is going to be a gigantic day in Michigan, and we know the nation's going to be paying close attention to what goes on here for all kinds of reasons, with the governor's race, with the Senate, turnout, what have you here. Let's start with the race at the top, the governor's race. Let's go back quickly here. Mike Duggan, former mayor, decided not to run for re-election, ran as an independent, left the Democratic Party, was in it till just before the Mackinac Conference, decided to drop out. How much did that help Jocelyn Benson?
It was a huge gift for Jocelyn. I think that what had happened was that when he initially made the decision to do that, he was calculating on being able to play both sides of the aisle, and I think that had this been a race between a traditional, for lack of a better term, Republican race and a Democrat, if anybody could have pulled that off, I believe Mike Duggan probably could have. I think he kind of miscalculated, because at this point, independent doesn't quite work.
Yeah, and Lauren, how do you see the race now on that side of the aisle?
Yeah, I think for Jocelyn Benson, this is a good year for Democrats nationally, because although Donald Trump is not running, certainly every Republican is going to have to run either with Donald Trump's record, or at least have to deal with it in some capacity. So for Jocelyn Benson, she can run against them.
So we just heard from Chris Swanson. I know the polls show him down, and as he said, polls don't matter, voters do, and that much is true. Does he have a shot here?
I think it's going to be very slim. Anything happen, but I pretty much think that Jocelyn is more than likely going to take it.
It's a long shot for sure, and I think Jocelyn Benson has been the front runner this whole time, and though Chris Swanson has had some inroads with unions.
Yeah, so let's flip the other side of the aisle, the Republican side, for the primary going on Tuesday, which finds John James now up against Perry Johnson, and same thing. Once Donald Trump endorsed John James. You had people dropping off, including Mike Cox most recently here. How do you see that side of the aisle?
Well, I think John James is the leading candidate with that. I mean, I think in terms of what that has done, because I think also still Perry has still tried to tie himself to President Trump, even though he didn't receive the endorsement.
Right.
But I think that in terms of who's going to be the front runner with that, I think that Jocelyn still seems to have as a matchup ahead. But
yeah, Perry Johnson is spending quite a bit of
$31
money.
million I read.
You are seeing
That's a lot of money.
A lot of Perry Johnson ads. I don't know if it's going to be enough to overcome the front-runner status that James holds, especially with the Trump endorsement.
Let's switch over to the Senate, which again this is the one that's gained tremendous national attention at this stage of the game here. As we look at all of this with Haley Stevens and Abdul Al-Sayed, it's a war going on between them right now. It's like the whole future of the Democratic Party. It seems to be riding on what happens here. How do you see that race?
I think in the end it's going to be close. I mean, the polls are all over the place. The most recent poll, Emerson apparently showed Abdul ahead, but then you've had a Glenn Garif poll which showed in a head-to-head race that he would be farther behind as Mike Rogers as opposed to Haley. So, but it's all over the place. But I believe that it's going to be, in the end, it's going to be a very tight race.
Okay. So, and I know this is a race in particular that you've been watching here. How do you see that on the Democratic side here on Tuesday?
This is really a fight between moderates and progressives, and we've seen that in the endorsements. We've seen that in who Haley Stevens and Abdul Al-Sayed is appealing to. It will ultimately come down to whether Abdul Al-Sayed can get, especially those youth voters to turn out, those really strong progressives versus moderates. Haley Stevens is doing a lot better with older voters, and they're typically high turnout voters.
How much do you think, you have Mike Rogers now on the Republican side, he is unopposed, so he is the nominee that will take on whoever's left standing after Tuesday on that side. Haley Stevens is running commercials, and there's a lot of conversation and concern that in terms of the race that it would be easier for Mike Rogers to beat Abdul Al-Sayed than it would be Haley.
That may or may not be true. You know, I think what it really boils down to with me, I think, is that you're looking at, there was an interesting column by Nancy Capper in the Free Press, which basically said that when you look in terms of how both of them are likely to vote, their voting is probably going to be close to the same. So it's really talking about the soul of the party itself, whether, like you mentioned, progressives versus traditional versus more old school Democrats. And I think that that's what you're really what you're looking at.
What do you think? We're here, the primaries August 4th. It's in the middle of summer. A lot of people on vacation, out doing things, not paying attention. What do you anticipate turnout to be?
You know, it's hard to say because, as you correctly note, midterm primaries usually not the highest turnout races, but the amount of attention that Michigan is getting right now nationally, internationally, really puts a lot of pressure on Michigan, right? And I think you just can't avoid that the election is happening. And I imagine especially Democrats really will have a lot to say about this election.
How about the early voting that's been going on here? Is that you take that as a barometer in any way?
I mean, it's early in terms of how long early voting has been an option, but there are early indicators that this is something that voters are starting to use more. They also have mail-in absentee, and of course could show up on election day, but it is interesting to see that this new voting option is being utilized.
Right. And Keith, you wrote a column for the Free Press again about Donald Trump, who gave a long speech last week for talking about this, sending in monitors because he didn't trust results in states like Michigan, which was single-pointed here, and sending in enforcement and other things. Have you heard much more about that? And is that enough just to ward off and scare off some people saying they don't want to deal with any of that?
Well, the first part of the question is interesting. Since that announcement, since he made that big speech, there hasn't been much else about the specific plans of what he thinks how that's going to be rolled out, if it's going to roll out. As far as scaring off voters, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, how do you see it, and what are you finding from your reporting?
You know, I think a lot of people were really interested to hear Donald Trump talk a lot about tariffs, which in Michigan is a little bit of a sore subject. You know, the Gordie Howe Bridge is open.
Yes.
That was something that a lot of people in Michigan were concerned about heading into the election cycle. So trade continues to be a point of contention.
I know there is so much more to say about it, but the bad news is that we're out of time here. So thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Thanks to you at home for joining us. We'll see you again next Sunday, but do not forget, Tuesday's Election Day. Please remember to vote and turn in here to CBS Detroit. Join us on Election Day at night as we bring in the results. See you next Sunday.